Hey, it's Dan Larsson here for ADSR Sounds. Today I want to teach you how to make a very cool future bassy saw, a very basic but also a very thick and wide future bassy saw instrument, and this is how it sounds in context. So the saw instrument sounds, well, it may seem it is very simple, but also it contains 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 layers, and the main layer is coming from analog. It is again very simple, but let me show you how I thickened up this analog patch. So this is the main instrument, and as you can see it is coming from analog. Don't mind these MIDI effects because, you know, I wanted to make this kind of LFO pumping kind of sound using an arpeggiator, and I also made the chord from single notes using the chord device and the scale device. So this is, well, for me it is the easiest way, you know, to just lay down the main chords and the main chord progressions. Anyway, the main saw instrument sounds something like this. Well, it is very weak and it doesn't have the potential, you know, to make it into a future bassy saw instrument, but with the effects, it sounds a lot better. So it is not only louder, but also a lot wider and a lot stronger. And the first thing which creates the sound is the OTT, because, you know, OTT is a kind of magical compression preset from the multiband dynamics plugin, which makes the sound a lot more in the face. So with the OTT, oh god, it's a lot better. So I added a chorus to give more voices, because, you know, you want fat and thick sounds. So the sound is a little too basic, I mean, it's a little too sawy, so I tried to, you know, experiment with it using a vocoder, and I used the carrier as a modulator, so basically we are modulating the saw with itself. It creates a very interesting sound, so once I apply that, it turned into a very interesting, unusual sound. Now I added a reverb too. Just a very slight reverb, you know, it is on 8% wet, and I got rid of the very lows because I'm using a different instrument for the sub. So I just, you know, use an EQ8 to get rid of the very lows and the limiter at the end, and I also use my own made dimension expander plugin, or this is a rack, not a plugin. So what it does is very simple. It creates a fake stereo effect by just, you know, delaying one side of the stereo sound, one side of the stereo field by just a few milliseconds. And I also applied a grain reverb with some regular reverb. It is very, very simple, but at the same time, it creates a very wide effect. And to the end, the saturator with a soft clip to avoid clipping. So this is the main sound, this is the main saw, and what I like to do is, you know, make the sound a lot cleaner and a lot sharper by increasing the tops, you know, just adding some more volume on the tops. But in this case I wanted to try a different thing. I added a noise layer, well, just a very short on the transient or the very beginning of the sound, and this creates a very interesting tone. So in context you won't be able to recognize that this is a noise, but, you know, it just creates an illusion of very clean and very sharp sound. Now this is the bass sound, this is the basic, but I really wanted to, you know, fatten out and widen all the sound to make it a lot better, a lot fatter, a lot thicker sound. And the first thing was I wanted to add another layer, another synth layer, this time from Operator, and this is how it sounds on itself. So the sound itself is pretty simple. It doesn't contain too much effects, but the main sound is something like this. You know, it's just a different character, and added to the main saw, it creates a lot thicker effect, a lot thicker illusion. But let me just break down the synth itself. It is very simple. We are having this shape, this algorithm, which means we are having operator A and operator B going out from the synthesizer. And operator A is a simple noise, which is very short. You know, it just creates the transient of the sound, the transient brightness of the sound. The second is the main character, the body, and we use only sine wave, so the basic sine wave is modulated by another sine wave, and it is modulated with another sine wave. So very, very simple. It's kind of roady, a key kind of sound. So this is how it sounds, but without the pitch envelope. It's a little weird, so I added a pitch envelope to make that little noise what a key instrument always has. So this is all basically, and with the added effects I just made it a lot enjoyable, especially with the chorus, because I love voices. After the chorus I added an OTT. You know, it just brightens out the sound, and EQ to cut the very highs and the very lows. So this way it won't conflict with the analog, with the saw, the main saw, and my dimension expander rack, what I just introduced you. So all together, so very cool, all together with the analog and the noise. So it sounds like there was something behind the sound. So it was not like a very flat kind of sound, but something we put behind. So this creates a very nice illusion. The second thing is I wanted to add a chorus, a vocal chorus, a choir kind of sound. And again, it is coming from operator. This is how it sounds. Very, very simple stuff. So I use operator to create this kind of chain. You know, we are using this linear chain. A sine wave is modulated by another sine wave, and a higher chorus sine wave with a bandpass filter. It is very important because without a filler, it sounds like this. So the filter makes the magic behind this sound. I also added a drive to make it a little in the face, more in the face. And the second one is a chorus, because I love voices. OTT like always, and I added a reverb too. A low cut to get rid of the very lows, and my dimension expander rack, which is pretty basic now. Okay, and the last layer is a piano, just a very regular piano kind of stuff. This is my favorite piano library, Native Instruments The Giant, very, very realistic, so I pretty love it. I added this rack, which I called the Humanized Midi rack, which, you know, just delays some of the notes and plays some random stuff with the velocity. It makes, as I said, a humanization kind of effect to the sound, but somehow it just makes some weird chaos to the chord, so I prefer to mute it. But with a chord, a simple regular chord, it just sounds so cool. Oh, without the arpeggiator, so. This gives a very, very nice touch to the sound, but without it, very artificial. So anyway, with the layer, I think it adds, with this layer, I think it adds a very nice touch to the sound. I also added my dimension expander rack, not really biggie, a multiband compression preset from the multiband dynamics plugin, an EQA to get rid of the very lows and boost a little on the highs, a compressor and a limiter to the end. Nothing fancy, but altogether, as you can hear, it definitely changes the full sound. Now another thing is I added a saw lead, which sounds like this. It is coming from Massive. It is a very, very simple sound. What I did here is I used a 1 octave lower saw wave, a regular saw wave detuned with another square wave, and I also added some phase modulation to the third oscillator, oscillator 3, and some filters, and the most important here is the distortion. So I added this classic tube distortion, very regular saw kind of sound, but you know, Massive has a very rusty kind of corrector, which comes very handy in this case. So this is all an EQ8, and because this is a layer to the main saw, I didn't want to add too much presence, only in the middle frequency area. So I got rid of that 4000 kilohertz and just boosted a little on the 10 kilohertz and cut out everything above. And the reverb, you know, this creates a sound, a tone which will fit pretty well to the other saws. So this was the saw itself. And we are still having a sub layer, which is again very, very simple stuff. I used a simple saw and filtered it in operator. I did a glue compressor and some EQ to the end to make it, you know, just fit a little better in the mix. Now another thing I want to talk about is in a musical group. So this group contains all the saws and the saw lead. So what I did here is I added a utility tool to, you know, tweak the main output, the main level, a multiband dynamics plugin, a EQA to get rid of the very lows on the full group, and some tweaks on the middles, on the 3,000-4,000 hertz area. I added a side chain, you know, to dog the sound only on the kick and the snare, which is, I think, very important if you want to make that pumping feel, which is very popular at the moment, and a saturated and a limiter at the end to get rid of clipping. And the most important part here is this rack, which is I call the record stop rack. So what it does is I try to modulate the frequency shift of frequency with the low pass filter cutoff, and this creates a very nice, well, a record stop kind of feel. And all I did here is I just, you know, modulated this knob, and this creates, for example, a vinyl record stop effect. Now this is a very smart thing because, you know, you can just draw in your own custom record stop effect. So it is very, very simple. It's a tweak. Let me show it to you on the analog. So it is kind of weird on itself, but in the mix, and if you know, just tweak it pretty fast, it really makes the illusion of a record stop effect. So this was basically the main instrument. I mean, the saw instrument and the layers and the sub. And I hope you learned something today and enjoyed it. And see you next time, guys. Bye bye.